Create a service component. Inside service component we will create some content, and that content or data we will consume in app component. So let's get started. So here inside app I want to create a service component. So go to terminal, and here you type ng space generate service. So I want to create a folder called services slash weather. So inside app I want to create a folder called services, and inside services folder I want to create a weather service. So press enter. So you can see that inside app there is a services folder. Inside services folder there is a weather service. So let's go and see what is there in service.ts. So there is a class and there is a injectable. So this is something we want to learn about dependency injection, which I will be explaining later. Okay, so now, so in this service component I'm going to create some content. What is that content? Let's create a function first, or a method. So get weather details. So whenever someone is calling this function, who is going to call this method? App component, because right now we are creating the data inside weather service. Okay, get weather details is a method which is going to return some data, and what is the data? It is an array type. Okay, so here I'm going to create some array of objects. Okay, first I'll just copy this structure, or I can say date, some date value I'm going to give. Today is 2021/10/11, whatever the date is, 24. Okay, now similarly I'll just say comma, because I want to use a different attribute. Here I will say temperature. Why I'm using temperature example, I'll show you. Okay, temperature in centigrade, and maybe I'll say minus 10 degrees, comma, temperature in Fahrenheit is something. Okay, maybe I'll use here 17 and 2, like this. Okay, so I will create some list of objects here. Second one, third one, and select format. Okay, so now we have the data. So where is the data available? The data is available in the service component. So now how do I use this service component inside the app component? So for that, first we want to send this data, right? Let's see how we can send. Okay, so now we need to consume the weather service data inside the app component. So here, first of all, let's start using this. And here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable here, public weather information, weather info, as a another array, which is empty array. So what I'm going to do, this weather info, I want to call the function which is created in the weather service. I'm going to call that a method, and I'm going to receive the data into this array. All right, so now, okay, maybe you can delete this for avoid confusion. And here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a constructor to call the service. So what I'm going to do, weather info service, what is the service name? Weather service. All right, so the info service. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create ng lifecycle hook. Okay, so which means whenever this component is called, we need to call that service, and we need to get the data. How we are going to get, let's see, is equal to weather details. So you can see here, weather info is the object. Whenever I use, maybe here information weather service, okay, I'll use this, and here I'll use this. Okay, so this is the object for this. It is basically the reference of this, right? How do you know whether I can call this service or not? You need to create a object. So once you create an object, you're calling the method inside this class. So let's say get weather details is available in which class? In the weather service class, right? If you go to the weather service, so weather service is the class you're exporting this class, so that way you can use any methods which are available inside this class. So in the app component, I created an object. With this object, whenever the ng on init is triggered, it will invoke this method, and it will store the information inside this. So get weather details, when it is called, it is returning the data, and this data is available in weather info, and weather info is the app component object. So this is the app component array object. Okay, now what we are going to do, since we have the weather information available inside the app component.ts, I'm going to use in the app component.html. So what I'm going to use, I'm going to take out this. Instead of customer name, what is the column I have? Let's see. So the column is weather, what is it, temperature, right? Date, first one is date, and this is temperature in centigrade. I want 3 columns, so I'll create 3 headings. Temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay, so we got the table row. Now let customer, you can create this object whatever you like. So I'm going to create weather, and what is the array inside the app component? So that is nothing but weather info. Weather info is the app component object. That object you are calling here. So whenever you are calling the array, so the first value gets stored here. From that, it is making a loop. So that is weather dot date, weather dot temperature. It is the service name. This is the temperature C. Then copy this third row column, temperature F. Save this, go back to the component. Okay, we did not start, so let me start it again. ng serve hyphen open. Okay, so you can see the columns are coming but the data is missing. Let's go and check why it is missing. Inspect console, see if there is any error. There is no error. That means we are not calling the values properly. So let's check here. App component.ts, we got the information. What we'll do, whether this weather info is available or not, we can check by log. I'll say weather info. Let's see if this array is getting printed. Okay, maybe I'll just say weather. Okay, why it's not printing? Yes, the mistake is ng on init. So this is the life cycle hook method, so that's why I made a typo here, ng on init. Okay, so now save this one, go back to this one. All right, so you can see whether data is coming properly, data, temperature F, temperature C, everything is working fine, but only temperature is displayed. Why? Because the objects are the properties are not matching here. As you can see, date and what we have in the service, we need to check. It's a data. That's the typo mistake, right? So we need to change it to date. And here there is a temperature typo, so I'll just change the data, temperature F, temperature F, temperature F. Save this data and just make sure you put different values, 35, 0, 48, 5, something like this. Okay, save this, go back. So you can see the data is changing. Okay, 24, the temperature in centigrade and temperature in Fahrenheit is changing. So what we have done now, we have created a component called service component, and we are making the call from the app component. So when the data is changing in service component, we are getting the content inside app. The next step is we will create an API, and what we will do, instead of hard coding the data in service component, we will call an REST API. Okay, so from the database or from a server, we will get the data to the service component, and service component data will be available from app component. Okay, we will see that example. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a .NET project here. Okay, so I have a Visual Studio 2019. I'll create a brand new project here. Let's see here, click on new, and here you can see app, and you can see the API. Okay, and from the left side, once you see the app, and you can see ASP.NET Core, and you can see which language you want, C#, and click on select the API, click on next, and it's saying the framework. I choose 3.1 framework, and I say weather service demo, weather service demo as the project name, and click on create. So what it is going to do, by default it has functions and classes which can create a REST API. Okay, so we'll see here, and you can see weather forecast. You can see there is a weather forecast API, and what is the API name? You can see here like date, temperature. That's the reason I have actually created the example with this date, temperature. Let's go back here and run the .NET project. And once you trigger the .NET project, and once it is successful, it will show you an API. Okay, you can see 5001 is the port, and weather forecast is the API name. Okay, this is the endpoint. So whenever I call this REST API, it is actually giving some content. Okay, For example, if I call this in a different browser, you may see the data differently, because here you can see this is how you generally see. But to show the JSON format, I installed a plugin called JSON plugin. You can download it from Chrome. So now what is the next step? I'm going to call this API from service component. I'm going to call this from the service component. So let's go back to the code. Okay, so let's close all of this and go back to the project. So inside weather service, whatever we have did, let's take out this or comment this code. Okay, or I'll going to delete this. Okay, so now we don't have any data available right now. Save this and open the service demo. Failed to compile because the data is not available in the service component. The data is not available in the service component. Okay, so coming back to the code, let's what we need to do here, we need to create the API, HTTP client API. So let's go here and first inject the object private HTTP HTTP client. Okay, this is a module HTTP client, we will understand soon. So this HTTP client, why it is giving error, it cannot find. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to import HTTP client from where it's available in Angular common /common/HTTP. Okay, so now you can see the error is gone. Next, what I'm going to do, inside this constructor, outside this constructor, first create an API. Okay, so maybe I'll use private API or URL, whatever you want the variable name. Okay, and what is the API we are going to call? What is the URL we are going to call? That is the .NET one, which is this one. Copy this, come back to the code, save this. Okay, so now we are going to trigger this API. So what is going to happen whenever app components make a call to service component will make a call to this API. So how that API, we just define the API, but it is not triggered. How it will trigger? By using the get method. Okay, so we are going to call this one. So let's say get weather. What is the method name we have used inside app component module? Get weather details. The same method I am going to use here. Get weather details. This is the method. So inside this, I'm going to return this .http.get. So that means when an app component is calling this method and this method is triggered, and when this method is executing, this will trigger the API, which is this URL, which is this .url. Okay, now whenever this URL is successful, whenever we get 200 successful, it will return the data. Whatever the JSON data we are getting, that will be applied. So save this one, compile successfully. The next step is we are going to include the HTTP client module. So this is a new module we have used. So whenever we are trying to use any HTTP client or anything, we are going to configure in the app module. You can see here, this is the app module. Inside app module.ts, we need to import the HTTP one. Import same HTTP client module from Angular. All right, then in the providers, we need to make sure that we configure the, in the imports, we will use the HTTP client module. In the imports, we will use the HTTP client module. In the providers, we will say the weather service component. So what is the component name? weather service component. So this is the provider. That means this service not only in the app component, you can use in different components. I'll show you that example soon. All right, so what we have done in the app module, we have configured the weather service, and we also configured the client module. Now let's go back to the app component.ts. Okay. All right, so how do we use that inside the app component? Because we cannot directly call this method. Okay, we need to get the response from that. So how we are going to get that, we will see. So here we have the weather service, that is fine, and let's take this out. This, what we have, this dot weather info. Actually, let's say this. Okay, this dot whenever I'm calling with the object weather service dot get weather details, you need to subscribe that method. And what is subscribe, we will see. So this is subscribe. Okay, so here I'm going to get the response. So we will use arrow function here, and I'll explain you in detail what is arrow function. So for now, what I'm going to use, this dot weather info is equal to response. Response is subscribe. Okay, yeah, arrow is missing here. Response. So whenever we invoke this method and we subscribe, and we get the response. So once we get the response, that means all the data is available in weather info object. Okay, and let's save this and go back. All right, see, now we are getting the data from the service. Let's say I have the summary, right? Summary is not available here. So let's go back here and create the fourth column, which is table H summary, and I'll create one more column here, weather dot. So you can see here what is the object name, right? Summary. All right, save this, go back to this. See, now how do I know whether it is coming from API or not? Okay, so go back to the Visual Studio Code, and here in the controller you can see there is a freezing, right? I'll just say freeze test. I'm saving this, and I'll stop and run the project again. That means this freeze test is the backend API. Okay, in the API it is changing. Now let's see if it is changed in the application or not. So you can just refresh to make the API again, to trigger the API. Okay, it got too much of data, so I'll just take this out to use only this. Okay, I think I need to stop and save this, run it again. All right, let me refresh. Okay, you can see freeze test is coming. All right, so this is how we create and in the next session I am going to show you how to create a REST API, and this one is not coming from the database, it is just a API. We'll create a database in MySQL or Postgres, and we can fetch the data from the database and display it. Okay, thanks for watching.